This is the example video for key components of lines in slope-intercept form. So first thing I'll do, I'll write my general formula underneath because I know I'm dealing with equations that are in slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. Okay, and all I'm looking for is the slope, which is our m, and our y-intercept, which is our b. Okay, so by writing the general formula here, I have stacked in columns what my slope will be and what my y-intercept will be. So taking a look at this problem, my slope, or my m, is whatever number is in front or attached to the x. So here, I've got -1/2. So my slope is -1/2. And my y-intercept is whatever number is attached to the back here. So I've got a +5. So my y-intercept will be +5. And that is all I'm looking for. Okay, so pause video if you need more time. On to number 2. So here, I've got y equals -1/2x, or -1/2x. Okay, so for my slope, I'm looking at the number that is attached to the x. So again, it will be -1/2. And now my y-intercept, I have no number attached here. Okay, so that would be the same thing as having a +0 on the end. So when I've got no number attached to my mx, my y-intercept, or my b, is going to be 0. Pause video if you need more time. Number 3. Y equals -3/2x plus 4. So I know my m is going to be -3/2. And my y-intercept, or my b, is +4. So my y-intercept will be +4. If at any point I start going too fast for you, just make sure you pause the video before I erase things and take your time. Next one. So let's start off with my easiest part for this one, because I have a feeling there are a few people who would have a few different guesses for what my slope would be. So I've got a +1 on the end, so I know my y-intercept, or my b, will be +1. So now let's take a look at my slope. So I'm looking for the number, or the coefficient that is in front of my x. So in front of my x, I've just got a negative sign. Okay, so this is the same thing as having y equals -1x plus 1. So if I had y equals -1x plus 1, it's easy to tell that my slope is -1. Okay, so when there appears to be no number in front of this x, let's say there's just a negative sign, that's the same thing as multiplying that x by -1. So our slope would be -1. Let's say there were no negative sign in front and we just had y equals x plus 1. Well, that's the same thing as multiplying times 1, so 1x. So our slope would actually be +1. A lot of people, when they don't see a number in front, they just have a sign, or there's just no sign at all, it's just an x. They try to put 0 for the slope. Do not fall into that trap. Moving on. Next problem, number attached to my x would be negative 5 over 4. And my y-intercept, attached to the back of it, I've got minus 2. So remember, the y-intercept takes this sign, the sign in between the mx and the b, so my y-intercept will be negative 2. Last problem. So y equals mx plus b, and I'm just given y equals negative 1. So what on earth am I going to do here? So I know my slope is whatever number is attached to my x, but I have no x here. So let's come back to that. So let's go to the y-intercept. So y-intercept, I have y equals negative 1. So my y-intercept will be negative 1. So now we have to figure out what to put for our slope. In this situation right here, when we have y equals some number, is the same thing as having y equals 0x, and in this case, we have minus 1. So if I rewrote my equation like this, it's pretty easy to tell that the number attached to my x is a 0. So my slope would be 0. Okay? And the reason we can write it like this is because remember, 0 times anything is going to be 0. And when we just have 0 here, we would have y equals 0 minus 1. Well, 0 minus 1 is negative 1, so we could rewrite it as y equals negative 1, which was the exact problem we were given. So that concludes our example video. At this time, I highly recommend moving on to the key components of lines in slope-intercept form practice.